The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Thursday. This is the second to last show for the entire year, and our holiday giveaway extravaganza continues. This morning, in this hour, we are giving away Endless Games Cornered. This is a game that's particularly great for our kids on the autism spectrum, and it is, they are a proud supporter of Autism Speaks. There is even a little blue puzzle piece on the bottom there, which reminds me of something I'm going to tell you later on that my son said yesterday that just cracked me up. But in any case, Endless Games, wonderful company. They have a wide variety of different board games that we've been giving away for over a month, and Cornered, really amazing game for our kids on the spectrum and off the spectrum. This is a great game if you want to give a game to a family that you know and they've got one child on the spectrum and some that aren't. This is a great game because everybody's going to be able to play it. It's sort of like the inclusion game, and what's really cool about it, it's a board that's a checkerboard of different colors, and there are a bunch of square pieces that have 4 squares on them, and each piece can only fit one place on the board. You have to turn it around and find where does it fit so that it matches the colors. And it's fascinating to play this game with a group of people and to see who can get their mind into the mindset that makes this work. My son, who's on the autism spectrum, got it almost immediately, and it took a really long time, and he got very frustrated with both my son. My son could do it faster than I could, but I could do it faster than my husband. He was like, how are you doing it that fast? His mind just doesn't work that way. But it was good for him to exercise his mind in that way, and it was great self-esteem for my son that he just kicked our keisters playing this. Really super duper fun game, and it's about, being able, perception and being able to see things in a certain way. There's turn taking can be involved. There's several different ways to play it. So really, really a great game and a perfect game. So we're giving away 2 of these in this hour. So the way that you're going to play this game is the giveaway game is watch the show, and at some point there will be a word or phrase at the bottom of the screen. When you see that, write it down. In the subject line, you want to email to us at this address that Emily's showing you right now by 7 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. In the subject line, you want to put Cornered, and in the body of the email you'll put the word or the phrase that Emily puts up on the screen. Okay, and that way make sure you do by 7 a.m. tomorrow. The correct responses, we'll choose 2 to mail Cornered out to people so that you can perhaps, fingers crossed, get it before next Wednesday. Can't guarantee that, right? Because the mail is now what it is, right? It's catch as catch can at this point. And we'll be giving away something in the next hour, but for the rest of the time from now to the end, they will only be things that have to be emailed because we know we can't get anything in the mail past tomorrow morning. So, but we do have more stuff to give away in the next hour, and then we have stuff to give away tomorrow. So you'll want to tune in for all of that. I also want to take a second to remind you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you'll participate with us. Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways you can. You're noticing that if you go to www.autism-live.com, you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show. When you're on the live site, there is also that white box that is next to the place where the show is playing. That is our live feature. You can put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and it shows up here on the screen. Sometimes there's a 1 to 2 minute lag, but we can almost be conversing in real time, which is great. And you may want to ask our experts a question. We've got an amazing guest in the next hour. So, not this hour, the next hour. But in any case, we hope you'll participate. Give us suggestions. You know what I'm doing? I'm knee deep right now. I'm actually elbow deep, let's be honest, in setting up our schedule of shows for the next 3 months in the beginning of 2014. And we've got some really exciting things. One thing that I'll tell you off the bat is that January is Blog-A-Rama, A-U-A-Rama, where we're just going to be featuring a lot of different bloggers who blog about the different aspects of autism, whether they're on the spectrum themselves or they have kids on the spectrum, some who have teenagers or adults on the spectrum. So we're really going to be featuring autism. They're not all autism blogs, let's be clear about that, but there's some element of autism that autism touches the life of the blogger. That's how I want to say that. So that's in January. I'm very excited about some of the different people that we're going to have on the show. And if you are a blogger and we haven't reached out to you and you'd like to be featured on the show, will you let us know, because we are setting up those appointments right now. And can't wait to do that. I will be honest with you that some of the blogs that I read and read on a regular basis got me through difficult times and get me through difficult times. So really important. But we're also covering other topics in January and February and March, and would love to know what in particular you would like to see covered. So I'm doing that right now. Now's a great time to be writing in and letting us know what you want to see here on the show. I like to, at the beginning of the show, always remind you that while I sit here and I sort of chair the format here, I am not an expert in autism at all. I'm a parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and what I knew about autism in that moment was embarrassingly little, and what I know about autism now isn't anywhere near what I need to know about autism. Let's say that I've learned a lot, and I am happy to continue to learn and grow as we have experts here on the show, and as I hear from you guys. You guys teach me on a daily basis. So, but I just want you to know that while I want to be here and support you, I'm no expert in autism, and that's why we have experts and guests to fill in the blanks, and that's why we count on you guys to interact with us. But my son was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, and he's 10.5 now, and thank goodness he's doing so well because of the resources that we were able to find. And so it's important to me to help you find the resources that you need to get the help and support that you need, whether you're a parent, teacher, or practitioner working with a child on the spectrum, or you yourself are on the spectrum. And we had the second half of the anxiety show yesterday with Dr. Doreen Granpeche, and really was interested both during the show and after the show, some of the different comments that I got both on my Facebook and privately on my email, and then through the show. I was really struck by how many of you wrote in and said that you needed that help, or that you have a child who's not on the spectrum who needed that help, in addition to all the people who said, I need this help for my teenager who's on the spectrum, my child who's an adult on the spectrum, or my child who's very young on the spectrum. So it really brought home to me that we all need support, absolutely all of us. And so I'm glad that we were able to give that yesterday, and we will continue in that vein. And thank you for letting us know. I can't tell you how much it means to us when we know when we've hit on something. We're here to serve, and when you tell us that we've served well, it's a really good thing around here. It's a good day. In any case, we like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it in our lives, because these terms, a lot of times, they're just outside our experience. Or, as in the case of today, it's a word that has meaning to us, but we don't know how the experts that are talking to us about autism, what it means in that context, right? So, our word today, great example of that, is mastery. And we talk about mastery a lot here on the show. And this is a word that you've heard. You know, you may use this word on about a daily basis, depending on what your career is. But this is a word that we're fairly familiar with, right? I've mastered the fine arts. Whatever it is, we talk about mastery. But what does it mean in terms of autism? And what does it mean in terms of autism treatment? Because it's a very specific thing that we need to understand plan when we are teaching a new skill with autism, because it tells us when to go back and reteach, and it tells us when the child has it. So let's take a look at our actual definition for mastery. It's the point at which the child is said to have successfully acquired the target behavior determined by previously established criteria. Okay, so that's where we get into a little bit of a, what do you mean determined by previously established criteria? Let's see if we can't make it a little clearer with the working definition. Our working definition is when the child is independently demonstrating the desired skill at the desired level. Okay, not that much clearer for me. What exactly are we talking about? So when we teach something to a child or an adult or to ourselves, we know in the field of autism, we need to make sure that someone has it enough that they can do it on their own, that they're demonstrating the skill independently, and that they can do it often enough. Back to the example of me and keys. I'm not great with keys, right? I wouldn't say that I'm brilliant with keys. I'm functional with keys. If you give me a key and say, go unlock that door, I can do it. Can I do it 10 times out of 10? I'm going to admit that I can't. I'm not that great with keys, but I can do it enough that as an adult, I don't need help, right? But let's say that sometimes I put the key in and I don't get it right. And I gotta fiddle with the key, and it's not the keys and it's not the lock. Clearly it's me, because I struggle with this more than anybody I know. But I can do it 8 out of 10 times. Probably 9 out of 10 times. So I don't need to go back and have somebody show me how to use a key, right? I'm just accepting that, and I know other people that, I mean, stop and think about it now. How often do you put your key into a lock and it doesn't unlock on the first time? Not necessarily even you have to go back and pull the key out, but that, you just don't get the door unlocked. Start to be mindful of it. But even though sometimes you don't get it right, we consider you've mastered opening locks, right? Because a lot of times getting something right 100% of the time in all settings isn't realistic. I drop my keys a lot. That's where my fail comes in more often than not. But sometimes I gotta jiggle the key too. I don't know what my deal is. But again, I don't worry about it, because I can get into any lock if I just, take a second to do it. So for our kids, what we want to do is we look at a skill, we're about to teach it. And we say, okay, we're going to teach, I go to making a bed, or brushing your teeth, or doing fractions, because we can apply this to absolutely anything under the sun. We can apply this to eye contact. We can apply this to saying thank you when somebody gives you a gift, saying hello to somebody, shaking hands with someone. I mean, any skill that there is, when we're about to teach it, we're going to think of we're going to think of a set of things before we begin to teach it. And one of the things that we're going to think about is mastery. And one of the other things we're going to think about is generalization, which I think we're talking about tomorrow. So I'll save that for tomorrow. But we want to think about mastery. When will we know that the child has this? We give tests all the time in schools. I'm a former school teacher, and now they call it assessments. They don't call them tests anymore. When did they do away with the word test? I don't know. But we usually, in the classroom, they say, well, we know that the child knows this skill because it was assessed. We gave a test. We gave an assessment, and we saw that the child clearly can do this, right? And when a teacher makes a plan, they say, I'm going to teach this skill. I'm going to teach all about the first things. An 80% or higher, we consider that the child understood the material. We're not going to force every single child to get 100%, but it's important for teachers of all kinds and shapes and sizes, teaching all kinds, and we're all teachers if we have a child on the spectrum, right? That we consider what is the success going to be that they've learned it. That's what mastery is. That we set a set of criteria for each skill. So if I'm going to teach shoe tying, And I want to say, okay, this child can do shoe tying, and how I know that they can do it is, and I'll set a criteria, that on 3 consecutive days with 3 different people in 3 different settings, this child can successfully tie their shoes, that they were able to make a bow and there was still enough of a tail left and the shoe was on tight. That's success. That's my mastery criteria. And now that I know that that's what success is going to look like, I can start to teach it to try to get to that point. But here's the rub. Sometimes we see that we set the criteria beforehand, and it's absolutely essential to set it beforehand. But we see, okay, I think the child can do it, but the mastery criteria isn't exactly demonstrating that, because they did it 2 days and then they didn't do it 1 day, and you go, then they must not have it mastered. We want to make sure that we never let the tail wag the dog. You set the mastery criteria, but frequently, I know we did this all the time with my son, we would sit there at clinic and go, does he have this skill? He really does have this skill. What is it in the mastery criteria that isn't demonstrating that? Because sometimes we set the wrong criteria. So don't let the criteria be the be-all, end-all, but you have to have a place that you start in order to teach. So let's take the example of crossing the street successfully while being safe and looking both ways. Can we settle for 80% of the time? No. That's not going to be mastery until they can do it 100% of the time in all situations. And I'm not going to trust that they've mastered it after they've done it 3 consecutive days. I'm going to need to see it for like 100 days, maybe 100 years, knowing the kind of parent that I am. Before I say, oh, I have no concerns and I let my son cross every street and I don't have any worry about it, and I'm not, prompting or saying, did you look both ways? It's going to take a long time before I feel that mastery has been met there. And I think I'm overly cautious there, but even the other day I was at the farmer's market and there was a 14-year-old girl who was completely neurotypical, and I was leaving the parking lot going at about 5 miles an hour, and she totally did not pay any attention, but from behind a car ran out in front of my car, and even at 5 miles an hour I very nearly hit her. And if you could have heard her mother yelling at her, and I was thinking, well, she does not have that mastered yet. That's where after I went, that's where my head went. I was like, well, we don't have mastery yet in all circumstances, do we? So mastery, really, really important. But again, you set the criteria first and then you teach the skill, but you keep checking in. But mastery really is that when we go, by George, I think he or she has it. I think they have it. But don't guess. Set your criteria and see and even if they've met the criteria, there were many times that my son would meet the mastery criteria, but he still didn't have it. He still didn't have it, and we would go, no, we got to change the mastery criteria because he's met the mastery criteria, but he still doesn't have it. All right. I've belabored that too long. We always have a question of the day that we like to ask you guys, in particular on Facebook. So our question today, since we're keeping a holiday head here, what part of the holidays are you looking forward to? Earlier this week, I think it was Tuesday, we asked you, what are you dreading? And I'm hoping that we're going to have some time in this hour to go and look at some of the things that you guys are dreading. Because if we know we're dreading something, we can do an antecedent modification, which we talked about last week about how we're going to change how that works. And we can also do consequence modifications, right? We can give replacement behaviors. We have tools now. Our toolbox is filled from the last 2 weeks. So a week, and our topic this week, and not just during the holidays, but always. My reality, I know that probably for the first year after my son was diagnosed, my husband and I were trying to move forward on getting him therapy and getting him better, and everything else went on hold. And we said, we're surviving. We're in survival mode. We're putting out the fire in the kitchen, and yet we were able to, through the grace of God and through good support, we were able to look back and go and look how we thrived in that time. So, and now we try to be really change on the journey. Let's be on it together. Remember, we hold hands and say, "See." Here on the list here, we're going to be looking at viewer responses and questions. We've got some holiday book called A Real Boy. And somebody that I know has somebody Christina's got to write a new book because roadmap. Will Christina continue global advances in medical a supplement for kids who are on Autism File Magazine called This and Not About What I Want It to Be About, or the ability, I don't want to be a place where they get in the spectrum, finding a way to support whatever the people who went to the Reuben Chen concert a couple of weeks ago that we provided tickets. Hi,
I do look.
all right. So here we are in the game aisle, Emily version. It helps to work on fine motor skills and it helps to older kids. It's colorful. You can work on colors and grouping and matching, counting because they have.
So then as the kids get older, what's great?
Let's look at some education. This particular toy, very popular this year. Pen that's in this box, you can put it on vegetables. So I'm teaching nutrition at the same
Now.
Yes, I'm going to take you to the demo table. We're going to let Emily play with the abled children. And this is put up in our children.
So can I play with the toys now?
Yes, it's time to play with the toys, Emily.
So I think I recognize this guy.
Yes, this is the ever popular and very sweet Elmo. But this is a very specific Elmo that teaches adaptive skills like zippering.
Almost yellow triangle zipper.
And so we get the reinforcement of Elmo talking to us when we do these things. There's a let's keep playing. So it encourages the child to continue to interact. And he's very reinforcing. When he giggles, I just want to hug him and play with him some more. Okay, so moving on, let's look at some Melissa and Doug toys. These are incredible toys. They'll last several different generations because they're made out of good quality wood.
Awesome.
And let's start with a lace and trace toy. Now, I happen to know that you love turtles,
I
Emily.
do love turtles.
And this is a set of farm animals lace and trace. And the child can pick out a color that they like for a lace.
All right.
And there are lots of different things that they can do with this. And I know it might seem like this is an old-fashioned toy, but you know, sometimes the old-fashioned toys are the best toys. Because what you're doing right now, Emily, is that you're using a lot of hand-eye coordination and you're using the pincer grasp. This is a precursor to writing right here. If you've got a child who's having difficulty holding a pencil, this is a really reinforcing way to work on this. And it comes in lots of different things. And then also for Melissa and Doug, we have this amazing switch and spin. Love this so much. This is a great cause and effect toy. As we start to put the gears together, we notice that when you turn one, another one can turn. You can rearrange this and do it in lots of different ways. There are 10 design boards, so you don't have to just do fish. There are other things that you can put there instead.
That's awesome.
Kids love this toy, and it's another Melissa and Doug toy.
Cool.
All right, let's take a look at some fun games.
So I found this game, and it's called Fibber. So Shannon, I'm going to need you to put on your fibbing glasses.
I want a fib.
All right. So this game is totally reinforcing, and it helps our kids to work on lying.
Yes, and that's something we really, I know it sounds strange, but we want to work on that because being able to tell a lie is something that helps with safety issues. And also being able to tell if somebody else is lying is a really useful life skill.
What you need to do is get rid of your cards without trying to grow your nose, kind of like Pinocchio.
Okay.
But if you get caught,
And so eventually you can have a whole string of noses attached to the end of your nose. Very colorful. Again, we can be working on the colors. Kind of hilarious. A kid's going to want to play this with mom or dad and see that mom is Pinocchio telling lots of lies. I like this game a lot.
this is a great game.
We've had a really great time at Toys R Us, and all of the toys that you see here on the table we're going to be giving away on the show. So stay tuned to find out how you can win one of these great toys. Welcome back. So that was us at Toys R Us. We have to say a big thank you to Toys R Us because A, they let us come in and ransack the store and film before anybody came in on an early morning. Eventually, we were still filming and some people came in. They opened the doors. But they also were able to donate the toys that we had demoed, and we really want to thank them because I know we've already gotten a picture. I don't know if Emily has it at her fingertips, but we've asked if you win something to please send us a picture. And for a lot of you that's after the holidays, but there is the lucky little girl who got Elmo. And I just love this picture because she's already playing with it, and that warms my heart. Isn't that sweet? What a beautiful child, what a beautiful smile. So we want to thank Toys R Us for donating those toys and making a difference, and we hope that you get all of you who have won, that you get them and that you have a happy, safe holiday. And take a picture, send it to us, because that really gets us jazzed and excited. I promised that we were going to take a little bit of time to look at some answers to the question of the day. And I chose to pick the one from Tuesday about what part of the holidays are you dreading, because I thought it was particularly interesting. Of course, somebody said the kids waking up way too early on Christmas morning, LOL. And I think we can all relate to that. I'll be honest that I think last year was the first time that my son woke us up. Usually we have to wake him up, but he was really excited last year, and so he woke up. But I don't know about you. My thing about it is so, you get up, and you open the presents and you have a little breakfast, and then my husband and I take turns sleeping. It's like, who's on duty opening stuff and snipping all the little cords from things and helping with the instructions for Legos, and the other person lays down and I'm sorry, I'm not usually a nap person, but on Christmas Day, is there anything more decadent than taking a nap on the sofa while everybody's running around you doing stuff? That's deeply pleasurable to me. So, we just kind of got to go with the flow on that. But many people wrote in and said that the thing that they're dreading more than anything else, one person in particular says, hearing comments from family members in denial about my son's special needs. Someone else who said Christmas Day with the in-laws and the chaos and disapproval from them that comes with it. And there were several people that had some variation of that. A couple of things I want to talk to you about. In the next hour, we're going to give away one of the holiday survival kits. And it's a perfect thing to gift to a relative who is giving you 68 kinds of you-know-what during the holidays. Because even if they don't end up using the whole thing, it gives you, I think there's 4 different IBT trainings that are specifically for people who, there's 2 different holiday gift packages, one for parents and one for peripheral people like family members, in-laws, babysitters, that kind of thing, so that they gain an understanding of what it is that you're trying to do. And they're training specifically to help educate what ABA is doing, what autism is, what it's not, what's helpful, and what isn't helpful. So we're going to be giving away the holiday gift package for peripheral people in the next hour. And I know you might be thinking to yourself, well, it's a little late now because they're already going to be at my house. I guarantee you, though, if you give that to them and say, when they open it, say, this is so important to us. And I always say it's great to give people a job, because when people feel like something is not right, they feel like either they need to fix it, and if you don't tell them what to do, then they drive you bonkers, right? Or they feel so overwhelmed because something is wrong and they don't have any skills where it's concerned, so they will engage in all kinds of other behavior that is not helpful. And in a way, it's a little bit like the OCD thing that we were talking about with Dr. Grampiche yesterday, that if something is so big and outside the realm of what you can get your brain around, that you start doing things that make absolutely no sense obsessively. Like our kids line up cars, right? We try to control other people's schedules. Maybe you don't, I do, right? And your in-laws, they wanted you to have a child who had nothing standing in their way. Well, I'm sorry, that child doesn't exist in anybody's life, but certainly not in your life. Your child has some very real obstacles to overcome. And so not only is this hard for you and your spouse and the child, it's hard for your in-laws too, and they don't know what to do about it. And unless you give them something to do, they'll find something to do, or they'll find something to say. You know, I always talk on the show about the day that I turned to my mother and I said, this is really hard and I need your support or your silence, right? I thought that was just going to kill her, but it was an important moment, and she didn't do either one in that moment, let's be honest. But by the next day, she came to me and said, I'm really sorry. I know this is really hard for you, and I just don't want you to go through this. And I was able to say to her, but I am. And you can choose to help me, or you can choose to support me, or you can choose to tear me down. But the truth is, I don't have time for that, Mom. And if you do that, I'm not going to spend as much time with you because I don't have the bandwidth for it. And that really changed things. And can I tell you, that's when my mother got a real boy. We're having Christina on in the next hour. That's when she got a real boy and read it and said, okay, I didn't realize, what you guys are doing and how important it is. So now there are going to be some in-laws that it doesn't matter, but if you give a gift and say, here's a gift because I want you to be included, it's got to move the dial a little bit, right? We got to hope for that. And if it doesn't, then probably nothing will, unfortunately. But I think the vast majority of the in-laws feel helpless. So instead of feeling helpless, put some tools in their hands and be specific and tell them what you need, and try to tell people before the moment in which it's happening, right? Whether it's the email that you send out this week and saying, we are so looking forward to you coming and being here next week because you are such an important part of our family and you are so important to us, and it's so important that our child have access to you because you're the aunt or the grandparent or, the cousin or whatever. Just letting you know we're working on these things this week. These are some behaviors that you may see. Here is how we're asking everybody to react to them, and here's why. So, if he does this and so, we don't want you to say something. We forget sometimes how important it is to give people the tools to know what to do in a given moment. Perfect example of, the other day, for the first time, my son had a play date with Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson's son, Wyatt. And during the play date, there were times when each one of our children did something that the other child looked and was like, what is that about, right? Right? And it was very interesting. On my son's, there was at one point when there was a very specific thing that happened that I had given the boys some little Lego minifigures to play with and share and put together, because I thought it'd be a fun little bonding thing for them. And what was so exciting was, they have these series of them. They come in all different, where they're on series 11 right now. And it's a mystery package. You open the package and you don't know what's in it. So we like to feel the package and guess which one and hope that it's that one and see, the excitement of it is, or the disappointment. And there's like 30 different characters. So you're guessing, and the likelihood that you will guess and it will be the thing in the packet, very slim. But Wyatt looked at all the different characters and he said, oh, I really hope it's the gingerbread man. And we said, okay. And he felt it. He goes, I think it's the gingerbread man. So he opened it up and lo and behold, it was the gingerbread man. Well, I didn't realize that he just loves the Shrek movies. And there's one thing that the gingerbread man says that's his favorite thing. And Wyatt he was giggling. He just was so excited about it. But then he said whatever the phrase was that, that's in the movie, and now Jem reacted to it too, so Wyatt saw the reaction, and so Wyatt said it like a couple of more times. And at one point, my son does that all the time, right? Something gets a reaction, so he's going to say it again and again. And at one point, Jem had the realization of, okay, he's saying it way more than maybe somebody else would. And I saw him have that reaction, and I don't remember who it was at the table who kind of just looked at Jem and said, don't react to it. And Jem went, oh, okay. And then it was fine. It was totally, totally fine. And I think maybe Wyatt said it one more time, and because it got no reaction, he didn't say it again. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so busy always telling Jem on the one side, but I was thrilled that as soon as somebody said to him, and it was just a gesture, they were like, don't react. And he didn't. And it was over. Same thing for in-laws and people who are going to cause trouble during the holiday. Give them the skills. Tell them, send the email this week and say, by the way, you may notice our child doing X, Y, and Z. And here's the reaction that we're giving, which often is not. We're not reacting at all. And here's why we're not reacting, because he's doing it for attention. And if he doesn't get the attention, then he will stop it. We've been very successful with this, boom. And then if they don't listen or they have things to say, then excuse my language, but they're just an ass. And you get to say, they're just behaving like an ass. And you don't have to get involved in it or get angry about it. You can just go, I tried. But I think there's less resentment when you can just go, okay, You're a buffoon in your head. You don't have to say it vocally, right? Because when we steel ourselves and go, oh, it's the holiday and they're going to say things about my child and it's going to drive me crazy, we don't get to be in the joy. And we deserve the joy. We absolutely deserve the joy. Continuing on this list, somebody who says, of the things that they dread about the holidays, shopping. I'm right there with you. But a bunch of people wrote it in and said, nothing. I've learned to be in the moment. I've learned that we don't have any guarantees about what comes next year, and to let a bunch of stuff go and just be present. Somebody who said, not really dreading any of it, as I love this time of year. Love, 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 love this. But then they did go on to say, as usual, I'm a little concerned about how my son will deal with everyone over at our place. The older he gets, the more he needs his solitary. Not looking forward to telling the little ones that will be over to please leave him alone. It's not that he doesn't want to play with you. It's more that he needs his space and that you're kind of invading it. But it has to be done, though. And I don't think that that's a bad thing to say to the little ones. But I also think, we give our kids skills that are socially acceptable. So what I say to my son is, when you've had enough, when you're feeling that it's all like, coming up like this, go to the restroom. Go to the restroom and take time in the restroom. It's the one time that I'm not going to be banging on the door saying, why you been in there so long? Right? Go in, close the door, take some time. He has devices, and I have said, if we're having a party and it gets loud, take your DS and go into the bathroom, because it is the signal. Unfortunately, we have more than one bathroom in the house, so he can go to the one upstairs and close the door, and it's not disrupting the party. And, and I tell him, take 5 minutes up there, because eventually people will say, where is he? And I can say, oh, he's in the bathroom. And if they start to say whatever, I go, holiday, different food, be vague. You don't have to say constipation or anything. And people get it. It's not party conversation. Shut up. Right? And the other kids will know to leave them alone. And 5 minutes, and by the way, we as adults can do that as well. That little de-stress time. Take some time in the bathroom and close the door. And people who don't understand that boundary, well, there's no helping them, right? Okay, so... and another person who says the transition back to school. We got some great tips the other day from Susan Campbell Cross, and she suggested that we keep as much as possible our schedule so that the transition back to school is not difficult. If we're used to getting up at 6:30 in the morning, I know we all want to sleep late a little bit. Okay, but just don't sleep till 9:30, because from 6:30 to 9:30, that's 3 hours. That's going to be harsh when you have to go back to 9:30. Try 7:30 and see if you can, that hour of extra sleep should feel luscious, but it will, only an hour to catch up on is not as bad as 3 hours to catch up on. All right, we are going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about some other holiday tips for things to make it more happy and joyous. Stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For December, I thought we'd work on an activity that is a handmade gift for someone who is super special in your life. It could be for a teacher, family member, or a friend. So let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing for this activity are cardstock, pencil, glue, and crayons. This activity is making a monogram letter filled with crayons. This activity is great because it works on the pincer grasp, and also planning ahead, since you're going to be having to break the crayons to fit the inside of the letter. So to begin this activity, first things first, mom or dad or guardian is going to have to draw out the letter for the kid. If that's a little difficult for you, you can always just print something out from your computer and then glue it on the heavy cardstock, all right? I'm going to go ahead and draw mine freehand. So now that my letter M is drawn out, now it's time to fill it in with the crayons. So I'm going to take them and place them onto it accordingly and try to break them into pieces that'll fit the spaces perfectly.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
So now that you've figured out the sizes of the crayons to fill in your letter, now take your glue and fill in the space and start laying them back in. Now we're going to let this dry for a little while. Once your monogram is done drawing, feel free to decorate any way you feel. I'm going to write a little message, but you can do whatever you want.
Stars come out and swirl around so high.
So here's my finished monogram letter. Hopefully Ms. Mackenzie is going to love her gift, and I hope you enjoy doing this activity with me. Until next time, guys, craft on. Bye.
When you see me flying by your side.
You know, welcome back. It's Thursday. It's the second to last day before the show. So, and I was going to talk about holiday tips, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But our question on Monday, I was just looking at some of your responses, and I got a comment. Our question on Monday was, do you believe it's possible to recover from autism? And there were a wide variety of answers. Somebody who said you can't recover from a different brain operating system. It's not a disease or a defect. We work on different methods to help my daughter function more easily and to make her meltdowns less dramatic for her. Somebody else who says it's not a disease, nothing to recover from. No, autism is a part of who they are. It's not a perfect life, but it's beautiful. A lot of people who said, yes, I absolutely believe it's possible to recover from autism because I did, or I watched my child, or I'm watching my child do it. Okay, so I got to back up a little bit because we have all these different discussions. Here's what I want to be clear about. At this moment in time, we have the Diagnostic Manual of Psychological Disorders, the DSM-5, right? And at this period in time, there is something called ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. Disorder. It's not a disease. It's a disorder. And there are criteria that if you meet the criteria, then you are diagnosed with ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. And in order to qualify for the diagnosis, it means that the symptoms that you have, because you can have the symptoms but not have them in a way that is a disorder. Let's be really clear about that. So there can be a very successful business person who likes to line up their pencils every morning, but they're very functional. It doesn't prevent them from being able to do the things that they want to do. That's not a disorder. But if someone gets up every morning and they have to line up their pencils and it prevents them from being able to have a productive life, and it prevents them from being able to socialize with other people, and it prevents them from being able to do the things that they want to do, that's a disorder. But it is the same thing, right? On the surface, you're lining things up, but it has a much different meaning within the life. So when we talk about autism spectrum disorder, we're not talking about a disease, but we're talking about there is some aspect that is holding the person. These symptoms go together to prevent the person from being able to do some things. Now, you can have a panic disorder. In my life, we were talking about anxiety yesterday. In my life, I have been previously diagnosed with a panic disorder because my life had gotten unmanageable to the point where I couldn't drive my car, I couldn't leave my house because of my panic disorder. Now, I won't say that I never have any panic now, but I don't have a panic disorder anymore at this period of time in my life. Panic doesn't disable me. So we can say I got better, I got treatment and I got better. You could say that I recovered. I certainly wouldn't use the word cure because that doesn't apply, but I might use the word I recovered from the disorder. And so I want to be clear that when we talk about on the show recovery from autism disorder, that doesn't mean that you change who you are, that your brain works in a different way, but it means that the obstacles that are in front of you are no longer obstacles. I have seen recovery from autism disorder. And it's real. I know it to be true. That doesn't mean that the person became a different person or the part of them that was not disordered that was changed by autism changes at all. It doesn't. No one was brainwashed or a different person, but the obstacles were removed through a great deal of work. So I want to be clear about those things that never on this show, and somebody said, I find this question offensive. It suggests that there's something wrong with people who have autism. And I want to be clear about the fact, I'm looking for, okay, here it is. The wording of the question suggests that our kids are sick. And I personally find that really offensive. My son isn't sick. I don't believe you can recover from autism, but I do believe with a very proactive, involved parent that we can teach our kids how to thrive in this world. Yeah, I believe that you can recover from the disorder that comes with autism in our young kids. So I just wanted to take a second to be really, really clear about that. And please know that we all get to feel how we feel about this. But I would hate to think that anyone thinks that our kids can't improve, because they can. There are multiple studies now that demonstrate that not only can kids recover from the disorder, but they can get to the point where they don't qualify for the diagnosis of autism in any way. So, my 2 cents on the subject. In any case, let's take a break, then we'll come back and do a holiday tip before we go to the A word, so stick with us.
So the holidays are fast approaching, and you might be looking for a fun cookie recipe you can make with your kids. Well, thankfully, Breads from Anna has given us a great sugar cookie recipe that we can make that's gluten-free. So let's get started. Here's some of the things you'll need. For the dough, you'll need 1.5 cups of vegetable shortening, 2 cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon almond extract, 4 eggs, 3 cups of Breads from Anna dairy-free flour, 2 cups potato starch, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And for the icing, you'll need 1/2 cup of shortening, 1/2 cup of butter, 1 tablespoon vanilla, 4 cups confectioner's sugar, and 2 tablespoons of almond milk. To start with, we're going to just mix together our liquids. So we've got our shortening, eggs, our vanilla, and our almond. And we're just going to go ahead and cream these together. So once that's all creamed, we're going to go ahead and add our dry ingredients, starting with our Breads from Anna flour. And we've got our potato starch, and we've got our baking powder and salt. We're also going to go ahead and put in 2 cups of sugar. All right, once that's all blended together, we're going to go ahead and cover this and chill for about an hour or overnight in your fridge. So it's been an hour, our dough should be cool. So we're going to try to roll this out to about 1/2 inch to about 3/4 inch in thickness. So while I'm rolling out the dough, I preheated the oven to 400 degrees. And I have a baking stone preheating in the oven that I'm going to set these on. But if you don't have a baking stone, that's okay. You can just use a cookie sheet with parchment paper. Now you're going to take your cutter and just cut out all your cookies. All right, so I'm gathering my cookies, my little dudes here. That's good. Let's go ahead and put these in the oven. And these should be good to go in about 6 minutes. So while our cookies are baking, we can go ahead and start making the frosting that we're gonna use once they're done. So we're gonna need our shortening. We're gonna go ahead and add our butter. We're gonna add our vanilla. We're gonna start to blend this. Okay, so once we've creamed these together, we're gonna go ahead and add our sugar just a bit at a time. And last but not least, we're gonna add our almond milk just to soften it up a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. So once our cookies are done baking and we've given them time to cool, we can go ahead and frost them all. Okay, so our cookies are ready. Let's go get them. These look pretty good. Now's the part where you get to be creative with your kids. Feel free to ice these in different colors, with sprinkles, however you want. We've got our cool cookies here, our homemade icing. All right, these look great. For more of these recipes and to possibly win some of your own Breads from Anna, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live, and we'll see you there soon. Thanks for joining me.
Welcome back. We had a comment that came in from our good friend Mike Hipple. Because we were talking about A Real Boy, and Mike wrote in and said that was my first book that I read this spring, and I loved it. But he says he didn't get to be all done with it because it was from the school library. Oh, Mike, you gotta finish reading the book. You'll love the ending. And Mike wants to know, did I read Game of My Life? And he says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too, Mike. And of course, you're referring to The Game of My Life by Jason McElwin. And Jason, we all know Jason's story because his video went viral. He was the basketball player who threw that long shot and everybody went crazy. And I have not read it, but for a long time we've wanted to have Jason on the show, and so that just kicks me in the pants a little bit to make sure that we have that happen in the spring, in the new year, not the spring. I was about to say the fall. I don't know what season I'm in. I don't know whether I'm coming or going. It's about to be winter. So we'll have to reach out to Jason and see if we can get him on the show in January. And thanks for reminding me about that. But which brings me to my next point, which is about tips for the holiday. And this is one of those things. I always remember my mother saying, do as I say, not as I do, right? And I had a little moment like that with my son last night where I was so stressed and running around. I was telling Emily this morning that yesterday afternoon, today was the last day of school for the year, and it was just a half day. So yesterday afternoon, we were in full holiday mode from the minute we came home from school, and we're putting together all the little gifts, the gifts for the crossing guard, and the gifts for the yard duty ladies, and the gifts for the OT, and the speech, and, all of and then we do a thing in our family that started years ago that we make a slideshow. We come in a couple of different times throughout the year, and we take pictures of different events that happen, and we compile it into a slideshow. And we started this when my son was in pre-K because he could never remember the names of the other kids. And so it was recommended to us to take pictures of the kids and to somehow have a way to make it interesting and rewarding for my child to look at their names and learn their names and look at their faces. So Peter Farrig, who is just brilliant, and we have on the show from time to time, had said it's too bad. And at the time I was making slideshows for people because that's what I could do when he was in therapy for birthday parties and things like that. And he said, it's too bad you can't have their name on the screen and moving around a little bit so it gets his attention, and a picture of them set to music. Why can't you do that, Shannon? You can do that. That's a skill you have. And I said, yeah, I do that all the time for people's birthday. Oh, okay, I'll do that. So I put together a series of I went in and took pictures of each kid, and I put their name and have it go so that the name waves and then explodes, and with music. And it was so cool that we decided, well, let's share it with everybody. And I needed a holiday gift for everybody in the class. And I could give pencils and I could give candy, right? But that seemed less fun than giving everybody a DVD of a copy of it. And it went over, it was such a big deal for the parents and the kids that we started doing that. So every holiday break, we make a DVD, and every year at the end of the year, we compile all the pictures together and make a year-end thing. So I don't have to worry about gifts, but I have to worry about making the slideshow. And it kind of has to be a last minute thing. But so there we were last night, and we were, doing the DVDs and putting together, we made little hot chocolate kits for all of the support staff, and, that had like 18 different elements of it. And he's old enough that he could help me now. But there were like 12 other things that I was going to do. Like I was going to make pizza dough cookies and make pizzas on them for his last lunch at school today. And fortunately, at a certain hour, he said, don't you remember, we're not having lunch at school tomorrow. So I went, okay, I can edit that out. And this is the point that I want to make for all of you, because at one point, Jen was like, we got to do this. And I said, we can't. We cannot do all of those things. So we have to prioritize. And I had that moment about, why, do as I say, not as I do, because I had to stop last night and go, all right, what are we editing out? There are too many things that have to be done between now and tomorrow. They're not all going to get done. They just aren't. I have big ideas sometimes and not big energy. So editing is our key word for the next week. And it just so happened that my husband called me and he said, We got a last-minute invitation, friends that I don't get to see very often that I adore, that wanted all of us to come to an event that they were doing. And we have something else on that day. And my husband had called me and he said, you know, I've been thinking about it, and this is the way. If I do this, then you can go to that, and you can spend an hour there, and then you can come to the other thing. And I said, you know what? As much as I would love that, I'm not going to do that. We're going to edit. I'm not going to go to everything because I won't get to enjoy anything, and I won't set myself up for success. So I'm going to call them, and I'm going to make arrangements to see them next week when I get to see them alone and not at their big party. I will get to spend some time with them, and I'm going to choose to not be crazy on that day. Let's all edit and choose not to be crazy. If you have a million things to do, pick 22 things that don't have to get done or don't have to get done today and move them off your plate so that you can be set up for success as well. And success during this season is to be in the moment. And because we talk about this all the time, that joy can only happen in the moment. So let's not close ourselves off from the joy. I'm going to try. I'll keep tabs on it, and you can keep tabs on me as well. But we're going to edit and do what's important, not do everything, because you can't. All right, we are going to take a break. We're going to go to the A Word, this amazing documentary that is being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed at the age of 2 and has enjoyed so much intensive ABA. And in this new clip that we debuted here the other day, Autism Live got to intersect and intertwine with the A Word. So we went to the LA Zoo. We took my son and Jack Riley and his dad and our staff, and we went off to the LA Zoo to see what would happen, and we had a great time. So check it out. This is the A Word.
We are here at the Los Angeles Zoo. We've got quite a group here. I've got my son, Jem, Mike from the A Word, and Jack Riley, star of the A Word, and Jessica. We've got a whole crew of people, and we're going to take a tour around the LA Zoo and see some exciting animals. Sound good, you guys?
What are the safety rules, though? Who do you have to stay next to?
Daddy and Dad.
So remember what we talked about, that every time you do something good, I'm going to write it on my hand. When you get 35 of these, what are you going to get?
3 hours of reading.
Yes, it's not a secret. You can tell people. What kinds of things do you need to do to get a mark on my hand?
Being kind. And good listening. Jem, can you show him where the chimpanzees are? Can you point it out to him?
Show Jack Riley. And tell us what your responsibilities are here at the LA Zoo.
I am the manager of volunteer programs at the Greater Los Angeles Zoo Association. I oversee the docents, the student volunteers, the general volunteers, and community service volunteers.
Give us an overview of what kinds of things people can see at the zoo.
There are lots of animals to see. We have a lot of endangered. We participate in a lot of conservation programs, and we offer a lot of education programs for our community, for school groups, for members, special needs.
What kinds of accommodations can you make when somebody has specific issues?
We have our special needs outreach program, and where we have a van that goes out into the community, and we bring a handful of animals to facilities that can't quite get to the zoo. So that could be a school, that could be a retirement community, that could be a hospital, and there are some courthouses that we visit as well. And we bring a couple animals and we talk about them, and it's kind of a fun experience. So that's our outreach program. And then on grounds, we also have tours, and we offer special needs tours for people catered to their needs. We have our petting zoo, so you can go and you can pet some goats.
We're here with from Autism Live, and we were wondering if you could tell us what it's like to be a goat in the zoo. Really?
And we have our condor rescue zone, so you can go in and pretend you are a condor, or you could be a biologist, or you could be a vet. And it's kind of fun.
Thank you for all the work that you do here and for making it accessible for all of our kids. We're here with Janet Jackson. Janet, tell us what your role at the zoo is.
My role is a docent, and we're volunteers.
How did you learn all the things that you know?
Well, that's the great thing about the Los Angeles Zoo. We have a special docent program. It's one of the most stringent ones in the country. Actually, it's UCLA accredited class.
Well, it added so much to our visit to the zoo today, so I thank you for all your knowledge and all your giving to the community.
Well, thank you, because I had a special needs child too, and I think it's so important that they interact with animals, and that helped my son when he was going through so much trauma, that we saw that he was able to grow and to expand a little bit, and it just helped us as parents because we had a tool to use, and we saw the love and the care that he was able to bring out just by touching animals and being around animals, because there is no judgment there.
Amen to that. Well, thank you for paying it forward, because you are. I definitely saw you doing that today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
What was hard for you guys today at the zoo, do you feel?
To be completely honest, I was about to say this is the easiest, best outing I can recall. My concerns are, I think we're sort of past elopement, but it's always on my mind when it's just with the two of us out in a, you can get 20 feet away if it's busy and be lost, be misplaced. But nothing like that happened today. There were a lot of people helping me, of course.
It was interesting for me because Jem hasn't been here since he was 3, like right after we started therapy, and I remember that was hellish the day that we were here. Sometimes I don't notice the progress until we're out someplace like this. Do you feel like that's true too?
Yes, today I was actually comfortable with him being 15, 20 feet away. And even if he wasn't holding anybody's hand or anything, I was comfortable, and that's a new feeling.
I watched that and I said, man, there's no way we could have done that at that age. So he's doing really well, and I was so engaged by how Jack Riley is so aware of the circumstances around him. He's really doing great.
Yeah, thank you. He's curious. He's and he's just learned a lot. I mean, I can't give enough credit to Miss Jessica. No disrespect to any of our other therapists, and she's been with him for the whole time. So that's a constant in his life, and I dread the day when she's not.
It's always amazing. We had our rock star on our team. There's always one therapist that just becomes a part of your family forever. What would you say to parents who are afraid to do it even with an aide?
I understand your fear, because I've always had it. But sometimes they surprise you. I know it's called a spectrum for a reason, and my son is not like any other son or daughter, and so I can't advise you on what may or may not happen. We were always worried about transitions. They're getting better because we do it, and explain what is expected before you get here. That was a hard lesson for me to learn, but every time I don't explain to him the expectations, I have more problems. I have more transitional issues, but when he knows what transitions he's going to face that day, he handles it. So my advice would be, talk it out, but come do it, and come again, even if it's a horrible experience, because it might be. You got to do it the first time before you can do it the second time. So.
I think in general, I explained the expectations here and we carried it out of my hand. I agree with you. It's super duper important. I think it's good for us too, because then we know what we're expecting too.
And they've engaged each other a little bit, which I was very happy to see.
Thank you so much for coming and doing this play date with us. We had a really great time.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it, and it's just a great experience. I can't wait to tell my wife how well he did. So.
And let's do it again sometime.
Okay, anytime. Okay.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So thrilled. This morning we have a very special guest with us in the studio, Christina Adams. She is the author of A Real Boy, a book that I have talked to you guys about many times before. It was really a pivotal book for me as an autism parent, and you are an autism parent, and you are a brilliant writer, and you've continued to be very influential in the autism community. You write for Autism File Magazine, and so thrilled to have you here today because you have have a new case report, the first of U.S. origin, about camel milk as a treatment. So excited to have you here. Welcome to the show, and tell us about this article.
Shannon, it's a pleasure to see you again. Thanks for having me. I totally support your mission, and I'm really honored to be here. So amazingly, moving from autism, which of course is a really large topic, I stumbled into this whole new area of milk from a camel. Now, why in the world did I do that? I don't know, because I'm not a big animal person. I was just minding my own business one day. I was at a children's book fair right after my book, A Real Boy, came out. And I was kind of bored. My son was off reading books. And just being the nosy writer person I am, I saw a guy with a camel, but no children were riding it. So I'm like, why is a camel at a book fair if no kids are riding it? So of course I have to wander over and find out what's happening. I was that bored, yes. So at any rate, I just started chatting with him, and he made soaps and lotions from the milk. And then for some reason, and I'll never know why, I said, what else do you do with the milk? And he said two key things. He said it's thought to be non-allergenic, and they give it to hospitals to premature infants in the Middle East because it's thought to be non-allergenic, and also it is very good for certain issues. So I thought, that's really all I need to know. Something just went off in my intuition, and that is a huge, important part of a message to us parents, because really your intuition is so important, because no one knows the child like we do.
Yes.
So I just got a fire in my belly, so to speak, and I went home and I started researching this camel milk thing, because instantly I thought, A, this might do something for my son's immune system, and B, I thought it could be a really great dairy substitute for people that cannot have regular dairy products. And there was just a couple of weird articles about making cheese and kind of odd things like that, mostly hospital stuff on PubMed, which is a big database for medical journal articles. So I just kept on obsessed with it. Don't know why, can't answer that, but just went on. And then I went ahead and around the next year, because this was late '05, in early '06, I came across an Israeli veterinarian's article that he had given camel milk to some children with autism, and they improved. And I knew then I'm on the right track. So crazily enough, I was single at the time, and I just kept pursuing this camel milk thing, and I got some from JFK that a Pakistani friend brought me from Israel, but it was dumped on the docks because I had no idea how to bring it in the country. Then I just decided I've got to do this right. So I called Israel, I connected with some scientists and some camel milk producers, learned all about this stuff, and finally brought some into the country, and eventually I became the first person to get federal government permission to bring it in for my son. And so finally, I think it was October '07, my son had some behavior issues coming back. He was just out of hand all of a sudden. Like, he would eat, 2 hours would go by, and then all of a sudden behavior would just plummet. I'd try to give him protein. That was the only thing that sort of helped, but it really didn't. And things were looking rough as a single mom at that time. So finally I just said, let's go ahead and get that camel milk going. And my fiance at the time, who had been in the pharma industry, knew nothing about autism. So if you're looking for somebody to join your life and help you out, make sure they know nothing about autism. He's been great. He said, why don't you just give him that milk you've been saving? So I did. At bedtime, he drank a half a cup. Amazingly, the next morning, he astounded us at the breakfast table.
Wow.
In just the flow of emotion, the flow of language, the flow of self-organization that we saw that morning, even empathy. Things like, oh, I love you guys. You know, you're really great. You do so much for me, Mom. What do we pay to hear those words from our children,
And you detail all of this in this article, in this case report that is in this, you have the magazine right here. It's Global Advances in Health and Medicine.
Yes.
Wonderful publication, and we've got the website where people can go to get more information from the magazine and about the article. But it's a wonderfully written report that details all the different things that you went through with your son and what you saw that was different.
That's correct, and this is a peer-reviewed medical journal. Therefore, it meets very strict criteria. There was a lot of research that went into it and careful attention to detail, so you can rely on what's in here, and please enjoy it. It just was published and it's the first article about camel milk treatment originating in the United States.
And we should also say that you've got a speaking engagement that's coming up soon that Ricky Lake is involved with about breastfeeding, I understand.
There is a new documentary. It's called Breast Milk, and it's about sometimes the trials and the difficulties, of course, that women have with this issue. And so I'm going to be speaking about camel milk there because it is, in many cases, there are studies that show it's very non-allergenic and can be tolerated by different populations. And it will be January 25th and 10:30 a.m. in San Diego. I'll be on a panel there, so please feel free to join us.
All right, remarkable. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and ask some more questions. I'm sure you've got some questions about camel milk. I know I do. And so we're going to be talking with Christina about that. And a little bit later on, we're going to talk about another article that she's written about where our children live now and where they live when they get a little bit older and where they live when they're adults. Really important topic. And she has done a great deal of research on this. I know you're going to want to know more about this article, so stick with us.
Hi, happy holidays. I love this time of year. I'm just finishing up the treat. Come on in. Welcome to the holiday issue of the Autism File. I'm Christina Adams. And inside this special edition, you'll find all kinds of helpful ideas to help your family enjoy what's often a stressed out time of year. Sensory strategies, funny Santa stories, non-toxic gifts, we've got something for everyone. And I hope you'll check out my Autism and Spirituality article, because families like ours sometimes have a unique approach to the holiday spirit. And to celebrate our differences, why not give a free Autism File subscription to the relatives and professionals in your child's life? Just go to autismmediachannel.com to sign up. Here's wishing you a fun, exciting, and peaceful holiday, however your family marks the season. Have a very happy New Year.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest, as you were just watching, is the fabulous Christina Adams. So thrilled, and it's our deep pleasure to have you here. I just admire you so much because, first of all, you were the gateway for me to get the help that I got for my child. I always talk on the show about, you know, if it had been up to me and what I knew, heaven help us, where we would be. But you really, I followed in your footsteps, and that has made all the difference. So I get emotional and verklempt. But so I admire you because of that. But the story that you just told in terms of you heard about camel milk and how that got to you talking to people in Israel and having your milk dumped out at JFK Airport, and you being the first person who could, this just demonstrates who you are. You are a powerful woman of strength who leaps over hurdles. I'm sure it's difficult for you. I don't want to make it sound like I think it's easy for you, but you're amazing. I'm glad I'm following in your footsteps because you are an amazing woman. I want to be more like you when I grow up.
I'm humbled beyond belief, and you're so sweet to say that.
It's so true. So let's backtrack a little bit, and we'll talk about the camel milk, because we had a question earlier this week where somebody was saying that they reintroduced casein with their child and that they had a lot of behaviors, and they wanted to know, could it have been from having the casein? And we talked a little bit about the peptides of casein in milk and the peptides of gluten and how closely they are related to opium. And so what is different in camel milk that makes it so that it's more tolerable for people who have allergies? Do we know what's different?
Well, at this point, we are lucky that, first of all, there's a couple thousand years of institutional knowledge about camel milk among pastoral cultures, camel cultures, Middle Eastern cultures, African cultures. So they have a wealth of information and history of using it medicinally. So we have some of that lore. But of course, what's important in today's world is that you get documented information. Yeah. So those studies have started to emerge quite well. Most of them are in foreign countries, though, where they have camels, because we have not that many in this country. That said, there is a lot of evidence now for camel milk in various disease areas. So why would our kids with autism benefit? First of all, initially working with my mentor, Dr. Amnon Gonen, we kind of were thinking that there's probably some anti-inflammatory properties here. And of course, our children are biomedically sick many times. Yeah. And so if you can calm the inflammation, which can be caused by foods, grains, gluten, you can measure that in blood test results. Yeah. So first of all, you may have that anti-inflammatory effect. Second of all, there's now some new thought that what they call the biome, which is each person's personal kind of beneficial bacteria and other things in their body, that we have lost a lot of the traditional good things in a variety of diets and environments that we're in as human beings. And so the more, advanced your culture are, the more sometimes you get those things out of existence from, all the things that we use in our culture to keep so-called clean.
Right.
So there may be something in the camel milk that helps with the biome.
Okay.
The interesting part about that is there's something more in a way in camel milk, because not only did my son initially benefit from the Israeli camel milk, who are least Bedouin camels who graze in the desert, then he also has benefited from using United States camel milk.
Okay.
So there's something in the milk itself. It does have casein in it, but the molecular structure is thought to be different.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem to have that effect with the casein that many of our children have when they have bovine and other milks.
Okay. Well, I since the last time you were here, I'm allergic to milk and cannot have milk now. So I'm even more interested in talking about the camel milk thing, because I miss my milk. I want to make camel milk yogurt. This is these are the kinds of things that occur to me at 2 o'clock in the morning when I wake up.
I will hook you up with that.
I want to do that in the worst way. But so can we talk about how you get camel milk in the United States now? Are we allowed to talk about that?
Well, I don't endorse, people's individual businesses or anything.
Okay.
There are places on the web where you can order camel milk. You can find camel milk. Sometimes there's herds within driving distance, things like that. So people are free to write me if they like, cadams@xiqllc.com, and I will simply, tell them where they might find those types of resources,
Depending
even
on
though
where
I
they
don't
are.
endorse particular people.
And are there things that we need to, because I'm imagining that you don't just look up on the internet and go camel milk in your area and just automatically assume that it's great. Since you are a camel milk connoisseur, what kinds of things do we want to be asking, and do we want to know to make sure that we're getting good camel milk? Are we pasteurizing, not pasteurizing? How do we want this camel milk?
Well, that's another one of the things that the scientific community is looking at. Sometimes they talk about pasteurized versus raw. My son was positively affected by raw. He's been drinking it for many years. I've been drinking it for years myself now. We've never had a negative incident. We're very fortunate. That said, we do get it from people. I have actually visited some of the farms in the United States. I do look at how they milk, how they clean, what they do. They do get veterinary visits.
There's a picture of you guys. Is this you guys at a camel farm?
Oh, it is. That's my son and I. That's a couple years ago. But yeah, thankfully the camel milk has done so much for him and for me as his mother, so I'm very, very grateful for it all. So fortunately right now things are pretty good. Now we are looking at, are there ways to lightly pasteurize the milk where you don't denature the proteins that may have the healing effect as much. It's all conjecture, but however there's evidence emerging.
Okay, really, really remarkable. So people can email you if they want more information, but again, you don't endorse any particular. Are there questions? What did you ask when you went to the farm to make sure that you were okay? You say, I looked at their cleaning process. I wouldn't even know what to look for, Christina.
Well, first of all, I got it from Israel, which I did not go to. I had to rely on the scientists and the people, and that was a leap of faith, but these were very reputable people.
Okay.
And we have a good friendship now, and I just met my main medical mentor for the first time in person after 7 years of discussion about a month ago. And what a fabulous relationship that is. He's a brilliant scientist. That's Dr. Amnon Gonen. So luckily I had top-notch people that I took my leap of faith with in Israel. And then since then I have sent people to that farm. So they brought videos and pictures for me. Okay. But in the United States, you just kind of look at the cleaning techniques. You don't have to go to the farm. There are actually some videos on YouTube where one farmer will demonstrate how he cleans the udders, what he does, things like that. And they do have testing results. Do not order from a farm that cannot give you testing results, that they have the milk tested for different bacteria regularly.
All right, good to know. So I just want to take a minute to talk about, we want people to read the report. So I don't want to tell everything in the report, but talk a little bit about, you said how clear, that it affected language. What are some other things that it affected for your son positively?
Well, I think one of the remarkable things is that it affected emotion and insight and expression as well as language, which is a big part of language, of course, all the pragmatics. Second of all, motor skills. Amazingly. And that's something we see now, because I've communicated with people, hundreds of parents now, whose children have tried Camel Milk. And also the motor skill improvement is something that does happen in many of the children, as well as that empathy and that language. Also joint attention.
Wow.
Huge. So now some of the children do have some negative side effects to begin with. Not all. My son never did.
Okay.
But some of them will have, a little hyperactivity. They'll be kind of a little irritable. But when you're cleaning out the fog, so to speak, of all the other disease processes and things like that that have gone on in the child's body, you're going to expect some stuff to happen.
Sure.
And those things are always reversible if you play with the different amounts that you're giving the child.
Okay.
So far, so good. No one has reported getting sick out of thousands of people.
Okay.
So far, so good.
All right, really remarkable. And make sure that you read that in the Global Advances in Health and Medicine, wonderful, wonderful report. We're going to keep Christina here because we want to talk about a new article that she had written for Autism File Magazine called Time for Change, about how we house our children when they don't live with us, whether it's a young child, a teenager, or an adult, where they're living and how we make sure that it's something that's positive for them and positive for us. So you're going to want to hear about this. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 4, run your own race, don't compare. Your child has their individual journey. Moving on to step number 5, shore up spiritually. Now, spirituality is a very loaded word. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I'm not talking about religion in the traditional sense. I'm talking about a practice, a belief system, or a ritual that speaks to your soul. Now, that doesn't have to be found in a church or a synagogue, although it may well for you. It could be found out in nature. Your altar could be a redwood tree. Your hymns could be birds singing overhead. It's different things to different people. In the early days of Wyatt's autism, I don't know how I could have survived without my church. In addition to dealing with his diagnosis, I was dealing with my husband's battle with cancer, the aging of my parents who lived across the country, and their eventual passing. I knew I could find peace, at least for an hour and a half, sitting in the pew of my church. See, anything can become a spiritual practice if you approach it that way. And for me, it wasn't found in a sermon or in a religious doctrine, but in my fellow man. We'll talk more about that next. In the meantime, find out what speaks to your soul and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest with us right now, live in the studio, is Christina Adams. I've said before, author of, if you haven't read it, A Real Boy, You Must Read It. I consider it the must read for all families, wherever you are in your journey through autism, but it's a must read. It absolutely is. And Christina is a brilliant writer, continues to write. Notably, one of the places you write is Autism File Magazine. And you had, in the October-November issue, wrote an article called Time for Change. Tell us what that article's about.
Yeah, I did write that article because I felt that there was a huge gap on information for parents of what are they going to do when either A, they're at their end of their rope and the children are still young and living at home, which does happen, or B, when the child gets a certain age and wants to live on his or her own. So that information, unfortunately, is very difficult to come by. There are a variety of agencies, state, regional, local, federal, that play into this scenario. So after seeing what some of my friends are going through right now with kids who are 15, 16, in need of placement, the placements are unsatisfactory, no one wants their child to leave the home. But there comes a point where it can be dangerous, not only physically to the child or the parent, but can be dangerous to the emotional health of a family.
Absolutely.
When you've been on the receiving end of some of behaviors for many, many years, it can wear you out. I mean, there are parents who unfortunately, take their own lives, feel so desperate that they, leave the family, divorce, whatever happens. So it's important to take steps to realize that there are choices, and it's not like, oh my goodness, we're abandoning our child, we're terrible people, or we put him away. That's the old stigma. That's one of the things I talked about.
Yeah.
The reason why housing has such a terrible connotation in the past is because of they used to place people with disabilities in large institutions, which of course were pretty terrible sometimes. And there were a bunch of exposés in the 60s and 70s about these really awful places. So everybody says, okay, no more large institutions. Okay, we get that. That money was supposed to come to give us small group institutions and housing. And unfortunately, that has not really come to pass, just as it has not for mentally ill people as well. So what do we do? Now we're looking at this wave of children who are aging into housing needs. So first of all, I wrote the article called Time for a Change, and it addresses both people with children that are still underage and how do you go about seeking help for them.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a ladder. If you contact your developmental agency, which in California is a regional center network, but other states have their own developmental agencies. First of all, your child needs to be a client of those agencies if they have impairment, because you might need it later in life, even when they're little, you think they don't. So you contact them. Before they're going to place a young child out of home, they will do everything to keep the child in the home. They will send behavioral people to your home. They will send aides to your home. They will do everything they can to keep that child at home and give you support. And so for many parents, that's enough to get them through adolescence, or maybe that gives them a room to try medication or other things. However, there are drawbacks to that because you have people in your home and you're basically running a group home out of your house, which is a very stressful thing to do. So if that's not sufficient or doesn't work for you, then there are placements. I have visited some of the placements with friends and then also through some legal work that I used to do. And, it's a little sad when you go in and you see, oh gosh, these are kids here living in a group. On the second hand, though, when you look around, if it's a well-run place, I've seen some beautiful, warm facilities. I just went to a place in a gated community on a lake in an upscale California suburb. And the home was lovely. The people loved the children. The mother hugged the boys like they were her own children because her own son's disabled and lives in another home that she runs. There was a warm and loving environment. There are places like that, but you have to be very careful. Yeah. So those things are available to you. Also, they are, if the child's education is not working out and they can't access their education because the behavior or other issues are in the way, your school district might help you place them in an appropriate school where they can get the right supports, the right psychiatric treatment. So that's another avenue too.
And I think what's really important that you said is that it's a ladder, that there are places where depending, and everybody's going to be in a different place, and that we shouldn't just assume anything, that anything is off the table. I know there are a lot of parents who feel like, well, I could never do that. Well, you don't have to unless you're in a circumstance in which it's really warranted. But for the parents who are in those circumstances who feel like I don't have options, I think the article is so brilliant because you list some of the things to look for in the article. Really, really helpful and important information to give parents. And then from there, you go to talk about the teen years and how a lot of kids can do really well up until the teen years and then get into a situation where, whether it's a more permanent setting or just a period of time, that everybody in the family to heal and to move forward needs a break.
That's correct. That's really important. First of all, nothing is permanent. Nothing. You can take your child home when you want to. Your child can change after they've been there for a certain amount of time. They're ready to come home again. Your child may like living independently, move out from a group home to his own apartment, go to a community college. There are all kinds of avenues to consider. So while it feels definitely like a tragedy, because when you are an autism parent, you always start out saying, I could never do that.
Right.
And then what do? You have to do certain things. But as a parent, that is what happens to us. We must do what the child needs and what the family needs. And you don't know what kind of silver lining is behind it. I will say that. There are positives that can come out of this. So it's important to know that there are things to look at. Everything's temporary, nothing's permanent, and the child can grow their independent skills, learn to appreciate what mom and dad do for him in the home, or say she's a girl and, she hasn't been able to socialize a lot with girls because you know how they get excluded by their peers.
Yeah.
She finds a peer group. She's having a little sleepover with the girl next door in this different room. There's all kinds of things that can happen that are positive as long as you do your due diligence and make sure that that's an appropriate placement and that it's a well-run facility.
And even in the article, it's actually very beautiful because you have wonderful graphics of what a group home that's functioning well could look like. And what was exciting to me was that I hear so often from parents about, there isn't anything. And I was left with hope from your article that there are places that do this and do this well. And I think anytime we know that there are options, that's a relief to all of us.
It is, and there are not enough quality places. There are still some places around, but you have to be on the hunt for them. But the good news is there is a movement among people that care about housing for our children, and they are trying to work with both nonprofits and with regional centers to develop that housing. And so in Orange County, they took my article and they're working with it with the city to try to demonstrate, look, this is what we need for our next cycle of housing. So it's coming, they're here. My nightmare when my son was diagnosed was, are these children going to grow up and be running in the streets and hit by cars?
Right.
I don't want to see that. But already in my own little town, there's 3 people in the homeless shelter that may have autism spectrum disorder. And I see them in the street. So I don't want that nightmare to come to happen. I want things to happen so that our children are loved and cared for, and they're very talented people.
Yes.
And so that they get the chance to live the way that where their talents will be discovered and they'll enjoy their life, and we'll enjoy our life because we know they're okay.
Absolutely. And I will say too, for those of you who have older children and that it's not a problem issue, it's just a wonderful issue that they are ready to move to housing, you also cover that in the article as well.
Yes, and that's quite complicated. There are tax issues. I mean, people think, oh, I'm going to leave my house to my child. Well, that's a little bit of a rumble that you have to deal with tax, estate. You have to have staff, all kinds of insurance. So I do talk about that in the article, Autism File Magazine.
Yes.
You can find that online, and it does guide you on a different variety of options. There's also Section 8. When you sign up for that, sometimes there's a roommate list, so somebody may already have a qualification. You can move your child in with that adult. And these can be for very high-functioning adults, too, who go to college, who just need that little extra support, who can't make the income to be totally self-sufficient, but are going to be able to live a pretty fulfilling life.
Really amazing. So again, that's in Autism File Magazine, and we encourage you to pick that up. We are going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk with Christina, just get an update, because for those of you who have read the book, Real Boy, I just want an update on how things are. I want to pressure you into writing the next book, because clearly you have more to say. So I hope we can, I'll work on her during the break, so stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills Assessment and Curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills Assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills Assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Before I forget, I have to remind all of you that in this hour, the free gift that we're giving away, it's that holiday gift package from the Institute for Behavioral Training. It comes with, I think it's either 3 or 4 individual trainings to survive the holidays. And this is the one that you give as a gift to someone in your peripheral existence. In-laws, the aunt or uncle who always have something to say when they're there at your holiday for dinner, or the babysitter, somebody who's in your life that you need some help in educating them about what it is that you're trying to do in your home, and to give them some skills so that they can be supportive or silent, one or the other. And so it's a great gift package for someone to be able to give to someone. What you're doing is watching during this hour. When the word or phrase comes up on the screen, write it down. Then you want to email us by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning Pacific time. In the subject heading, put the holiday IBT package. That's the Institute for Behavioral Training. And by the way, if you don't win it, you can visit them at ibehavioraltraining.com. They have trainings for professionals, for teachers, and for parents and caregivers on every subject that you can imagine. And they're as low as $7.50 for a training. It's really remarkable stuff. In any case, in the subject, you write iBehavioral Trainings, and then in the body of the email, put the word or the phrase, and of the correct responses, one person will win that gift package. And we thank IBT for donating those. But right now, we have in the studio with us Christina Adams. Before we went to break, we were talking with her about this article that she has in Autism File, Time for a Change, about housing for our kids on the autism spectrum and our adults on the autism spectrum. We also talked with her about Camel Milk and the wonderful case report that she has right now in Global Advances in Health and Medicine. And I mentioned at the top that she is the author of A Real Boy, which for me is the definitive book that if you have somebody in your family or you are on the autism spectrum, I think it's the first book that everybody should read. It is that entry into the community book. And so I said to Christina, where is the second book, Christina? I want a second book. I want an update on what's happening. You got to include the Camel Milk journey, and I want to know how your son is. So tell me that there is a second book coming.
Well, I will tell you that in my dreams there is a second book coming.
Yay!
And I am currently about halfway through all my research and things like that. And part of it, in my imagination so far, which I do like to make things happen, if possible, it will happen. First of all, it will be partly a follow-up from the first book, A Real Boy, because quite a lot of interesting stuff happened in life. So I would like to talk about that. Second of all, it will be a lot about Camel Milk, because there is, interestingly, a crossover. Like autism, who brings together the community regardless of your religion, your culture, your origin, whatever. When you come together for autism, you don't fight. You come together for autism. You don't criticize each other's religion or cultural stance or anything. You come together for that child. So in the Camel Milk world, it's been the same thing. People from Islamic countries, from Israeli Jewish culture, from Amish culture, from homeschooling Christians to Buddhist people, everyone so far has come together to help get Camel Milk to children with autism and other disabilities. And it's a beautiful story. I'd like to integrate the two.
Great.
And so wish me luck, cross fingers, because that's what I'm going to be working on.
Yay. Well, I'm excited because I want to read that. I want to be first in line to read that. And so, but can you tell us a little bit about how your son is now?
I can. I'm delighted to say that he is just so funny and hilarious, and he is 16 now.
Wow.
Taller than me. Yes, we've gotten to that stage.
Wow.
So the deep voice has been around for a while, the taller than me thing. I'm used to that now. But I'm really glad to see some of the traits that he's always had are really starting to come into flower as a 16-year-old. He always was kind of an entrepreneurial kid. He was always getting books and toys and having little yard sales. He wanted to have a job, he said. He wanted to have a job. Okay, great, I want you to have a job. But, what do you think when your child is, in 5th grade or something and they have spectrum traits? Are you worried about what they're going to do? Are they going to have a job? Well, right now, through a school internship program, he's got a job.
Wonderful.
It's incredible. He is learning merchandising. He is learning customer service. He is, I did a surprise sneak visit at his workplace the other day. Boy, was I really impressed.
Cool.
I thought, wow, all these years of work and everything we did and all the good stuff that I knew was in there is actually coming out, and I'm not doing the work. He's doing it.
Amazing.
So, we work long and hard for things in our line of work, right?
That's true. That's true.
And sometimes you get them. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get them. Luckily with him, I'm very proud of him. He has still gotten that great vocabulary. He's an excellent creative writer. He has been into sewing and designing fashion clothes and sewing them, and he's always been very good with his hands. But of course I like, my little fashion stuff, so he has a great eye. And so he took some of my magazines and he's just really gotten great into fashion design.
Cool.
So I got him sewing machines, he's had lessons, so, and he's very creative. And I always told him, you know what, a guy that can do things like that, the girls will enjoy that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So has he said now at 16 what he thinks, what profession he wants to pursue as an adult?
He has, and he goes back and forth. So sometimes it's been fashion design, sometimes it's graphics, sometimes he thinks ad agency, right? And then the other day he said something about weapons design, and as a former aerospace person, I would be supportive of that, even though you always want your child to work in a different industry than you did.
Right.
So he's looking at different things, but he went online the other day to look at colleges, some of them with a large price tag. Of course, it had me pretty nervous. I'm like, community college.
Well, there's a
program,
reason to
that
get the
looks pretty
second
good.
book out.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, really, yeah, the scholarship fund. So I'm excited to see that he's really seeing and thinking about what he's going to do. He wants to have his own place when he's 18.
Yeah.
So I'm laying out some of the options for him.
Right.
Things like that. So it's nice to see the concern for themselves come from themselves.
Yes.
Because we want so hard for them to not take what we do for granted.
Right.
For them having been the center of attention with the early intervention, everybody's surrounding them and telling them what to do. And when you can step back and let them go, and then see if they actually can deal with the natural consequences in life, and he's doing that very well. I'm very happy about that.
Remarkable. And he's still an only child.
Well, he is, but the beautiful thing is he has 3 stepsisters.
Okay.
So he's had that sibling relationship now since we met in 07, we got married in 09, and we all lived together as a big blended family for a while, and so I'm very, very happy with that. And interestingly, one of his sisters just moved to Kuwait to be an ABA therapist for a family.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yes.
Full circle moment.
Yes, it definitely. Everything's coming. We're all coming together.
Amazing. I just think you're remarkable. So glad. I've always said, this is the club nobody wants to belong to, right? When your child gets a diagnosis, but you meet the most amazing people, and I count you as one of the most amazing people I've met on this journey. So thank you for being who you are and claiming your space in this community in the way that you have. It's remarkable.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for everything that you have done for your family and for this community.
Well, I appreciate you so much, and we hope you have happy holidays. And the one thing I will ask you as we leave is that every person that we've had on the show this week, I've said, what's your vision for autism for 2014? Really putting you on the spot here, but what would you like to see in 2014?
Well, I don't take a partisan stance on certain things publicly, but I will say I feel that both sides have let us down on autism. I am not happy about it. I want to see more political action. I know it's because people like us get weighed down. We try to be polite. We try to get along. We've got sleep-deprived parents, but I am really, really disappointed in what's happened with addressing autism in this country, and I'm getting really tired of it, and I'd like to see more of it in 2014. And I will support anybody that does that in a nice, respectful way, listening to all parties. That's what I believe in.
Wonderful. I couldn't have said it better. All right, we are going to take a break, and I'll be back to finish out the show and tell you what's happening tomorrow, because tomorrow's a very exciting day. But thank you so much to Christina Adams. Stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. 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 Let's get wild.
Hi, it's Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to What's Left. We're enjoying some wine. We're going to make some fake bourbon chicken tonight. But we're not using bourbon. It's not gluten-free. So what we're doing, and Kristen, you're doing a great job at pounding and getting out all of your energy on that chicken. So go take it out.
I know. You know, how many of us moms are at a park or we're at a grocery store and somebody walks up to you and, you know, your child's having a meltdown and, you know, having not one of those fun days. This is a great thing to come home to. You would come home and really pound that chicken and you would feel so much better. Basically, it kills two birds with one stone.
You're making a great meal for your family.
Yes, and you're feeling great.
You're feeling better about that jerk who said, why can't you get your kid under control?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all your pounded, aggressive chicken and start to saute in the skillet. And I'm just going to add a little bit of my grapeseed oil. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in. We love the way we're going to just try to brown this up and cook it a little bit. Just a little bit of salt and pepper on top. And we're just going to go ahead and brown this. Great, Kristen. Great job. I think we're almost all brown here, so I'm going to get your help over at the cutting board, if you don't mind.
The cutting station.
The cutting station. We're going to cut this in about 1/3 slices. You go chop it up. Okay. I'm going to start on the sauce.
Okay.
We're going to take the orange juice water and add that in. And I'm going to measure out the fake soy sauce, 1/3 cup. Add that in. Take in your ketchup and your brown sugar and go ahead and put that in. So in here is the red pepper flakes and ginger. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. So in the red pepper flakes, if you've got a kid that's really sensitive and doesn't like to bring a lot of heat to the kitchen, you can definitely omit that. That's not a problem. And then my favorite, as much garlic as tolerated. And the last thing that we're going to do, and as we get this heated up on the skillet, is we're going to pull this in, thicken to the sauce, and add in the arrowroot to thicken it. So we're going to go back to the frying pan. Woohoo! And put in our sauce, and we're going to bring it to a boil, and that's when I'm going to add the arrowroot. What arrowroot does for everything, like when we're baking with gluten-free flours, this adds kind of the oomph to hold it together. Arrowroot is also a great sauce thickener. So let's go in and add the chicken. Thank you again for helping get this all together. I made extra sauce because I'm a saucy girl. So we made a really nice meal here tonight. We're talking just the right flavors, right texture. So I'm going to serve you up to what we're going to have for dinner, if that sounds good to you. Yes! So
I always love coming
over. So what we made over here is just really some, what I call my dirty rice. And it's just some of the really nice different spices. I use a little red pepper flakes in that as well. Beaumont, parsley, and just salt and pepper. It's really simple. And some of my favorite, which is zucchini sauteed. So I'm going to just go ahead and serve you up, and you can get to be my guinea pig once again.
I will always be a good guinea pig anytime you cook.
Bon appetit, my friend.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us at Autism Live. Kristen, I had fun with you today.
I always have fun. Thank you.
It is. It's great. And we had fun with you, too. And if you have questions or want to see us cook some more different dinners, just email us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com or go to Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. Or Taka Now. Taka's got tons of recipes, over 2,000 recipes ready for you to come and explore and have some fun. And thanks to Holly for this great bourbon-free bourbon chicken. And we'll see you next time on What's Love? Bye, guys.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here at the end of the show, and I want to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about what's happening tomorrow and then what will happen over the break. So tomorrow is the last show of our 2013 live series, and tomorrow we're going to end on a bang, right? We have Hans Gillinger, who's going to be with us tomorrow. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He is a lawyer who used to represent different school districts, and now he represents families in an IEP process. So he's got that unique perspective of having sat on both sides of the table and knowing the tricks that both sides of the table like to bring to the table. Really fascinating, some of the things that he talks about. So we asked him, we just didn't get enough time with him when he was on a couple of weeks ago. We asked him to come in and talk about tips for successful IEPs, and some of this stuff is just like hard facts that we need to know, so that we are sitting in the best beneficial spot to get what's appropriate for our kids. And some of them are just psychological things that would never occur to me, but help us to be able to have the upper hand. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but even if it's just that you learn what the tricks are to know what the other side is doing and to not fall prey to it, really important. I know I tend to be somebody who I'm like, oh, do we really have to play the game? But you know what? When it comes down to making sure that our kids get what's appropriate and what they legally have a right to, I don't know about you, I'll play a few games. You want me to dance through a flaming hoop? Okay, if that's all it takes, let's do it. It makes me a little resentful, but I'll do it just to get it over with and get it done with. So Hans is going to give us the 411 about what the games are at the table and how we can negotiate it and end up with what is appropriate for our child. And I think that is the key to having our kids be successful in school, is fighting for and getting what is actually appropriate. And we know that the law says they have to get a free, appropriate public education here in the United States. So you got to take advantage of it, and sometimes that means girding the loins and going in and knowing what's going on. Hans will tell us what we need to know. And then also tomorrow we have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox for the final hour, and he is the head of research and development for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, but also the director of the Autism Research Group. So he will be here to answer your questions. We've been saving a lot of questions that you guys wrote in that really require a BCBA or higher to be able to talk about some of the different aspects of what you have going on. So if you have questions for Dr. Tarbox, we really want to hit as many questions as possible, because after tomorrow's show, we will be taking a break. We will be back on January 8th. And on the 8th, we'll have Dr. Doreen Grampichet here for Ask Dr. Doreen. And then Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be joining me for the second hour for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're waiting for confirmation on the guest, but it's somebody incredible. I can't give it away yet. Maybe by tomorrow I'll have confirmation, and then I can give it away. Otherwise, you're just going to have to wait for 2.5 weeks and know that it's big. But in any case, we will still be regularly posting on Facebook and on the blog as well throughout the break. And I always invite you to friend me on Facebook, and we can continue conversations on Facebook. But I am going to take a break because I think we could all agree that I need to. This week has been a very interesting week, and I think sometimes I have digressed. But as long as I don't regress, right? But it's important for all of us to take a break from time to time. And so we'll be back on the 8th, and but you will be able to contact me through Facebook and email as well during that period of time. You know, I never stray far. And I always like to say we all need to hold hands, and I'm learning from you guys as much as anything. So I hope that you will stay tuned with us, and as you receive the holiday giveaway extravaganza gifts that you have won, I hope that you will take pictures and send them to us, because we're really wanting to feature those in January. And don't forget that January is the blog AU-RAMA, AU, not O-RAMA, where we're going to be featuring blogs that have something to do with the autism community, whether it's a person who is a parent or a caregiver or teacher, or somebody who is on the spectrum. There are so many voices of autism on the blogosphere, and we really want to be promoting and supporting those people because it's a great way to connect and learn. So if you have a blog and we have not reached out to you yet, I'd like you to absolutely email us and let us know where you are and that you'd like to be featured on the show, because we want to feature as many different blogs as we possibly can during that time. I know that they have made a great difference. Do you know how sometimes you just, you're stopped someplace waiting for something for whatever reason, and you go through your email or you go through your Facebook and somebody says something that changes the trajectory of the day and reminds you to be grateful. And that's what I get from my autism bloggers. So we're thrilled to be able to give you guys, to put faces to voices as well, that we'll be having some of those rock star bloggers so that you can see who they are and what they are. In any case, we're going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'll count on you to do the math for everything else. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.